Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, this is Jesse with the Common Nerd, and man, I'll tell you what, Hollywood has zero new ideas left, ladies and gentlemen, because it's just nothing more than revival and reboot and continuation and bringing things back and yada, yada, yada. And some of it works out okay, and some of it generally turns into a disastrous dumpster fire. And well, the latest one of those is none other than Buffy, boys and girls. And yes, as a big fan of the 90s series out there, and of course the sequel, the spin-off Angel, which I think actually ended up enjoying more than Buffy, but it was one of those great series out there, and apparently they're trying to bring it back right now. And obviously it's one of them situations where Josh Whedon's been kind of in the news over some of the toxic work environment that he allegedly created on the set. But either way, at the end of the day, boys and girls, it was an absolutely fabulous show that so many fans loved, and that a lot of people enjoyed the spin-offs and everything else. And it's one of them situations where, considering the ending of this series, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because if all of you would just a free spoiler alert for like a 25-year-old show at this point, if for some reason you missed the ending of Buffy, the original series out there, just pause it and skip ahead about 20 seconds or so in the video. But literally, it ended with all of the Slayers, everyone who was a potential Slayer, getting unlocked. So what are you going to do with this story? How are you going to go forward with this? Because guess what? It's not a reboot. It's a remake. It's not a remake. It's literally a continuation, because Sarah Michelle Gellar, yes, that absolutely lovely and gorgeous lady out there, she is actually going to be back in it. So she's going to be reprising her role as Buffy the Vampire Slayer in this. And don't get me wrong, she still looks good, boys and girls. I'm not going to complain about it in any way, shape, or form, but this is so weird. Like, where are you going to go with this story? I have no idea, but we're going to get into all of the juicy details over here from Variety.com, because I know there's a lot of us out there that are big Buffy fans out there, big Josh Whedon fans, and so this is a very fascinating thing to see what's going to happen. And considering some of the people involved in this, it's kind of a mixed bag as to see as to whether or not this will actually end up being any good or not. But considering all the disastrous dumpster fires we've seen from Disney in the past when it comes to reviving things and trying to bring them back, well, we all kind of know how a lot of that's turned out. So best take all of this with a very giant rain of, if anything, a little pessimistic optimism, if anything. So we're going to share this article from Variety.com, getting all the juicy details of exactly who all is involved in this and as to whether or not that's a good sign or a bad sign. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. We're inching our way closer and closer to 1,600, and I really would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and join our little group over here. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out the links in the description down below. But let us know what you think about all this in the comment section down below. Were you a big Buffy or Angel fan out there? Which one did you prefer? Are you excited that Sarah Michelle Gellar is actually reprising her role and this is going to be a reboot from something else? Let us know what you think about this. Do you think it's going to be a disastrous dumpster fire right from the Disney? Because at the end of the day, this is coming from the Walt Disney Corporation. Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. Or as my buddy Griffin likes to point out, the Bob Iger Corporation. So Buffy the Vampire Slayer sequel series with Sarah Michelle Gellar returning nears Hulu pilot order. Whoa. From Variety.com and our Joe Otterson. Nora Zuckman and Leela Zuckman are writing the pilot with Oscar winner Chloe Zhao attached to direct. Now, sounds like a whole lot of whammon power. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But there, of course, yeah, they're a classic. In every generation, there's a chosen one. Again. Variety has learned from sources that a sequel series to the beloved show Buffy the Vampire Slayer is nearing a pilot order at Hulu. Sources say that Sarah Michelle Gellar is in final talks to once play the iconic title character in the Untitled Project. Although it would focus on a new Slayer, and Gellar would appear in a reoccurring role rather than leading the series. Okay, that makes a little more sense. But once again, like the way you ended the original series, are you just going to retcon that? Are you just going to completely ignore it? Because now everybody that has the potential to be a Slayer is going to be a Slayer when they come into their mind. So you're not going to have just one. So I guess they're going to probably retcon all of that. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Nora Zuckman and Leela Zuckman are attached to write and executive produce. Chloe Zhao is attached to direct and executive produce under her Book of Shadows production banner, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it goes down here to the end. It gives like everybody's little backstory on where Chloe Zhao is, I believe. Let's see. Zhao, Yeah, Zhao, this is one of the things that worries me. Zhao was also the director and co-writer of the Marvel film Eternals. You know, that absolute abomination and bastardization of the great and legendary Jack Kirby's work. Yeah, so not exactly giving me a lot of warm fuzzies when it comes to that one. Not exactly given a lot of warm fuzzies for that one as well. So we'll see what happens on that one, boys and girls. But yeah, if Chloe Zhao is attached to direct and executive produce, we'll see what happens on that one. Gellar would also executive produce along with Gail Berman. Fran Kuzi and Kaz Kuzi will also executive produce via Sweet Bee, while Dolly Parton will executive produce via Sand Dollar, which I didn't even realize until I read this article that Dolly Parton was actually was one of the executive producers out there in the original series as well, which I think that's crazy and just makes me like Dolly Parton even more. Shout out to that lady. She's awesome. So Yeah, because they were producers on the original Buffy series. That is absolutely wild. And of course, reps for Hulu and 20th Century. What? It's 20th TV now? Disney, you're such jerks. Like, just at least call it 20th Century. Like, okay, drop the Fox, whatever. But at least call it 20th Century. 20th TV? That literally is the dumbest name I've ever heard. So yeah, Disney, get your shit straight. Notice we have some from the show's creative team is Josh Wheadon, which is one of the reasons why I'm not exactly very optimistic about this. If you were bringing Josh Wheadon back, that would be a completely and totally different story. But this seems like it's just a female dream team of Disney out there, and it's one of those things that doesn't exactly make me too cautiously optimistic about the whole situation here. And obviously we talked about some of his issues about his making a toxic environment. They go back and forth on all of that kind of nonsense and yada yada yada. We don't really care. Got to talk about where Gellar's currently at right now. Now this is one of the things that did actually get me kind of curious about this. Actually, it might be okay. So the Zuckermans were showrunners on the popular Peacock series Poker Face, which I've never heard of, but Prodigal Son, Fringe, which I know a lot of people really liked Fringe, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I really enjoyed. I know Suits has been continually making out there making all of the top Nielsen ratings and all that kind of stuff for people rewatching it. And I really loved Haven over there at Sci-Fi too. I thought that was a wonderful show. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was something that ended way too soon. So it's one of them situations where you've got kind of a mixed bag of people involved in this kind of situation, right? Because I mean, seriously, Zhao, outside of all this other kind of stuff, outside of Eternals, Nomadland, ever heard of that? I mean, I guess they won a bunch of Oscars. The Writer, Songs My Brother Taught Me, not exactly sounding like a superhero kind of horror genre kind of movie out there at all. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with all of this. Should the sequel show proceed, it will be the latest series revival to find a home at Hulu. Most recently, Hulu gave a pilot order to a reboot of Prison Break, which... What? The streamer, I didn't even know about that. The streamer currently airs new episodes of the adult film Futurama, and King of the Hill, we know, is currently in the works, which rest in peace to Boomhauer on that one. But literally, I don't know, boys and girls, I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag of the people involved in it. I'm not a big fan of anybody that's worked on anything Eternals, especially somebody that was a writer and a director on that thing, being involved in anything else like this. And honestly, it's one of them situations where even with Sarah Michelle Gellar returning and trying to concentrate and kind of like pass the torch onto a new Slayer, it's going to be one of them situations where everybody's just kind of sick of this. Like the revivals and the rebuttals, like there's probably going to be a lot of hardcore Buffy and Angel fans out there that will absolutely watch this, at least give the first episode a shot out there. But it's one of them situations where, like, everybody's just tired. Everybody's just done at this. Like, Hollywood come up with original idea out there. And it's one of those funny things that one of the guys out in my chat pointed out earlier, and I could not have worded it better. Hollywood is run by bankers, corporate goons, and satanic cults. They can't come up with anything, and they always end up perverting it. Whatever they were touching, they actually end up perverting. So shout out to Spartacus for that very well thought out idea, because it's one of them situations where that's absolutely right? We know that like all the tech bros are the ones with all the money in Hollywood now, and it's the bankers and the financing ones, and everything's just ones and zeros to them, right? So it's one of them things where like, hey, this worked really well in the past. Fans really loved it. Let's bring people back. Let's bring people in. Let's revive it. Let's try to do it again. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's gotten so stale. And it's one of them situations where whether or not this ends up being halfway decent, which I don't think it's going to be great by any means, even with some of the people that are involved with it, it might be good at best, probably passable, or just downright absolutely abysmally horrible. And at the end of the day, that's probably the more likely path. This is Disney we're talking about, right? They keep trying to talk about Hulu and Fox, but all of that is owned by Disney, boys and girls. So whether or not Disney can roll off a Buffy the Vampire Slayer revival, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's only a matter of time before we find out. And honestly, I think we're all probably best off if this thing doesn't actually ever come to fruition. But knowing the Walt Disney Company, it probably will. At least we'll get to see Sarah Michelle Gellar again.